Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ivory Matthews. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Columbia Housing. Just want to thank you guys today for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us as we provide an update on repositioning our public housing portfolio at the Lewis Scott Court and Eastover properties. I'm going to turn it over to Cindy Herrera, and she's going to provide an update on the status of our redevelopment of those sites. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're so glad you could join us this afternoon. My name is Cindy Herrera, and I am the Chief Development Officer for Columbia Housing. And I'm going to ask Ms. Lee McRoberts to give us a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll get started.
Sure. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Just a couple things to make this as enjoyable an experience and easy to participate in as possible. We are recording, and we'll make this recording available on our YouTube channel within the next 24 to 48 hours, along with the Q&A. So if you would like to go back and revisit any of the information that you hear over the next half hour, 45 minutes, you'll be able to do that. In addition, if there are any neighbors or friends that you know weren't able to make today's meeting, please let them know that they can access the information there. If you have any questions during the chat, when you have questions during the presentation, please put those in the chat and we'll get those answered during the Q&A period following the PowerPoint presentation.
Great. Thank you all again. We're here today to talk to you about the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. What is RAD? It's referred to as RAD by HUD. It has been around since 2012. It is a demonstration program that HUD has provided to public housing authorities. What it actually does is it takes the property in which you live out of the public housing program. And it puts that property into a different type of subsidy under the project-based voucher platform. And so it changes it from public housing to Section 8. And under RAD, it allows us to be able to make improvements to the property, either through rehabilitation of the property or through new construction. So why did HUD come up with this RAD program, and why are we here in Columbia participating? Basically, what HUD found over the last few years is that the public housing units across the country, across the entire United States, need more than $60 billion in repairs. HUD calls these repairs capital needs. The capital amount of money that's needed to fix up the properties. What has happened over the years is that Congress has not provided enough funding for housing authorities to be able to keep up with all these capital repairs. Because we haven't had enough money, we've had to make really difficult choices about what we're able to fix and what we're not able to fix. So we've had to make choices about what we could do. And in some cases, we've even had to demolish some of the public housing across the country, and as well as here in Columbia. What RAD does is it gives us a way in which we can rehab and repair the units without having to wait on additional money from Congress, which historically they have not provided. So what does RAD actually mean to you as a tenant? Well, first of all, we want to reassure you that you will not lose your housing assistance. Nobody is displaced as the result of the RAD program. And you will not be rescreened. You will not have to meet new criteria in order to live in a RAD unit. So even though we're going to go out and secure private money under the RAD program to be able to make repairs, we're still going to get money from HUD. That money from HUD will be in the form of the subsidy that's going to continue to be provided to the Eastover community, and it's going to be done through the project-based voucher program. So in essence, your public housing unit is going to convert to a voucher unit. RAD does require that the properties continue to be either owned or controlled by a public or a nonprofit entity. This chart shows us a little bit about what the properties look like before RAD and what happens after we do this RAD conversion. So first of all, as we've mentioned, the properties are not funded at 100% while they are in public housing. When we convert them to RAD, they will be funded at the flat rent amounts under Section 8, so we will know how much money the property has to operate. In public housing, we are not allowed to borrow money. So we cannot go out right now and secure money to be able to make repairs. But once we convert these properties under the RAD program, it allows us to go out and get money from banks, from lenders, and from investors that will allow us to make substantial repairs or to rebuild the properties. Currently, the funding we receive for public housing does not allow us to keep up with the deteriorated conditions that we have in the properties. But once we convert it to RAD, we can make those repairs by getting this private money, and that's going to improve the overall conditions. And then finally, and very importantly, is that right now as public housing, you cannot move unless you lose your housing assistance. If you move out of the Eastover community right now, you're not going to have housing assistance any longer. What happens under RAD, once the properties are converted to the project-based platform, after 1 year of living in the RAD property, you can then request to receive what's called choice mobility. That allows you to be able to request a voucher, and you would go to the top of the list and to be able to get the next available voucher. How does RAD affect your rent? This is a question that we always get from residents when we talk about RAD. And most important to remember is that it won't affect most of your rents because the voucher program calculates your rent the same way that it's calculated in public housing. It's based on 30% of your adjusted income. So most of you would never see a rent increase as part of the RAD conversion. However, if you do pay a flat rent in public housing, it is possible that you could gradually have to pay more rent. If you're paying a flat rent and your rent does increase by more than 10% and requires you to pay more than $25, then any new rent would be phased in over a 3-year period. So it would not happen all at once, it would be phased in. And again, this is only if you're paying a flat rent in public housing. Now, the RAD process is kind of a lengthy process. So the reason we're talking to you today is because it lets us start the process. In order to submit our RAD application to HUD, we have to have 2 meetings with the residents. This is the first of those 2 meetings. But the overall process is going to take about 2 to 3 years. So it starts with strategic planning, which we've actually completed all of our strategic planning. Over the last 2 years, we've been looking at all of our properties. We've had architects, engineers, and different people come out and assess the properties and tell us what kind of condition the buildings are in overall. Now we're in the process of preparing to submit our RAD application. So we're having the first meeting today to talk to you about RAD. And then in 2 weeks, on October the 19th, we will have a second meeting where we would talk to you more specifically about our plans for the Eastover property. Once we submit the application to HUD, we receive something called a CHAP, which is basically something where HUD just says, we've approved your application, you can begin the RAD process now. That RAD process consists of a lot of different things. We have a lot of pre-financing approvals. We have to develop a financing plan which says what kind of work are we going to do and how are we going to pay for that. Once we get through that process, HUD gives us a final commitment, and that allows us to convert the property and close, and then we can start the rehab or the construction. So it is kind of a lengthy process, but as I mentioned, we're starting now because this is the first step to start the process. The next steps, very important, do not move, okay? As I mentioned, the timeline's a little long, so nothing's going to happen right away. But Columbia Housing will continue to schedule meetings with residents throughout the RAD process to keep you informed of all the plans for your community. And very important, we want to make sure that you join us for our next meeting on October the 19th when we'll talk to you more specifically. We do know that preliminarily our plans are to be able to do substantial rehabilitation at the Eastover property. I'm going to end the slideshow now, and we're going to take any questions that you have.
Ms. Herrera, I'm getting some interest and some questions about the whole voucher process. So once this begins, which it sounds like you're saying will be in about a year, can I take my voucher outside of Richland County?
Yes, that's a good question, and we get that question frequently, but the answer is yes. If you decide to take a voucher, now let me explain first that you will have choices about what you decide to do. Everybody is guaranteed the opportunity to stay at your current community. We will be doing rehab, and we anticipate that that rehab will be done in phases. So people will be moving at different times, but you will have the option to select a voucher and be able to take that voucher wherever you'd like to take it, if you choose to do that instead of staying at the community.
Great. Do I have to be in good standing at my property now to take advantage of all these things coming up? So if I'm behind on my rent, or if I've got a teenager that may have had some issues, what do I need to know about that?
Very good question. And it's very important that you remain in good standing, because you won't be eligible for a voucher if you violate your lease. So you must make sure that your rent is paid and you continue to abide by all the rules under your lease while we're going through this RAD process. We will be continuing to manage the property as public housing during this process, and you do have to remain in good standing to continue to be an eligible public housing resident.
Now I've got somebody asking, what about once the moves and the work starts? Will Columbia Housing help me move, or is that all going to be up to me and my family? Should I start looking for movers to help me now? How are we going to do that?
Very important. Do not do anything right now. But when you have to move, we will have all services available to you. RAD has some very specific rules about moving, and so we will assist you. We will have movers that will be able to move you from one unit to another. If you choose to move off the site and not stay on the site, you will have the option of doing a self-move, in which case you would be paid a flat fee based on a schedule from the federal government. If you stay on site, we will have a moving company that will move. We will provide all the moving and packing materials for you. If you're elderly or disabled, we will also provide packing services for you if you choose to do that. We will assist you with any costs that might be associated with transferring any utilities that you pay. And so all of that will be assisted. So everything will be provided for you. We will have a relocation specialist who will be at the property while this process is going on, that will be able to assist you, answer any questions, and make sure that everybody understands what the moving process will consist of.
That's great. So trying to follow up to that question, will the relocation specialist help me find a unit if I'm not sure where to look? If I'm more familiar with that Eastover, Lower Richland area, but want to move closer into town, is there somebody who's going to be able to help me navigate that?
Yes. If you're going to move temporarily, meaning you make the decision that you're going to stay at Eastover after the rehab work is done, then we will be providing you with places to move to. If in fact you're going to elect voluntarily that you don't want to come back to Eastover, then we will provide you with a voucher, and we will have the relocation specialist will refer comparable units to you so that you can use one of those units, or obviously you can always search for units on your own. We do have a landlord liaison that works with our voucher program, and he is constantly working in the community to attract new landlords and be able to list new properties that are available for people who have vouchers.
What about if I have children in school and want to keep them in school? Will that relocation specialist help me with those kind of things?
Yeah, we will try to accommodate everybody to the best of our ability. And that'll be part of what, when we start the process, we will assess each family. The relocation specialist will meet with you individually, and they'll go over your circumstances, and you'll have an opportunity to say, my children go to this school. I want to keep them in the same school. We are also working, as we go through this repositioning property of all of our public housing, we're working with the school districts to let them know exactly what's transpiring so we can plan accordingly. So we will, take that into consideration and do everything possible to accommodate families with their children in the same schools as well.
So we're getting a question that we've had from a couple of the other meetings today. Folks want a sneak peek. Can you share some of the upcoming plans and give a little spoiler alert, or is that coming?
Stay tuned for our meeting on October the 19th. Hopefully that'll bring everybody back on October the 19th to our second meeting. That's when we're going to share more details to you, but I can share with you that we're basically going to be doing a very substantial rehabilitation of the property, which means we'll basically be gutting the units and pretty much building you all new units on the inside that will be more modern. They'll have dishwashers and microwaves and washers and dryers. And so we will be making sure that your units are much more modern and up to today's standards. That'll be part of what we're doing. When we had the architect and engineers do the assessment of the Eastover property, we found that the buildings are pretty substantial still, but that the units are just very outdated and the repairs have not been kept up the way that they should have. So we will be doing that, and we'll be telling you a lot more at our meeting on October the 19th. We'll be sharing more details with you, as well as the timeline. We'll have a better idea to share with you on the overall timeline.
One kind of question sort of about what's going on now. What if tenants have issues with units that they're in right now? What should they do? Who should they contact to work through those?
Okay, very important that you stay in communication with your property manager. We do have a phone number that you can call. And Lee, you might want to just say that number again, that's available 24/7.
Yeah, I'm going to get that Medcom number and
Okay.
put that in the chat, and we'll get that out to
Okay,
everybody.
very good. That will be in the chat, so everybody will be able to get that. But basically, it's important that if you have any problems currently with your unit, you need to call those in through maintenance. And if maintenance doesn't respond, then you need to get a hold of your property manager and let your property manager know. Do we have the property manager for Eastover on the call here with us today?
We do.
Okay.
Miss Watkins is with us. She's having a little bit of camera issue, but she is going to join us by audio and introduce herself.
Great. Ms. Watkins? You're muted. There we go. Ms. Watkins, can you hear us? We can't hear you. Well,
we will put her number in information in the chat. Bridget Watkins Long is a property manager for Eastover, and we will get her email and her contact information in for everybody in case you do need that information to reach her to call an issue in.
okay, we're very excited. Any other questions? Please talk with your neighbors about what we've discussed today, and encourage everybody to join us again at the meeting on October the 19th. The information for that meeting was in the notice that we sent out to you about this meeting today as well. So we hope to have everyone be back in touch with us on October the 19th, where we'll share more information.
That's great. And again, we will have that up on our YouTube channel. So if anyone missed it or wants to go back, please keep an eye out for that in the next day or so.
All right. Thank you all very much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.